Busy or productive? For a time, I worked for a community organisation providing support for the long-term unemployed. These were usually people dealing with a multitude of issues such as psychiatric and other health issues and/or substance abuse, domestic violence, restricted educational opportunities and so on. What exactly I was supposed to do to help them was never quite clear. An hour's chat once every month or so, if they turned up for their appointments, well, that achieved very little. Often they didn't turn up at all anyway, and let's face it, beyond meeting the requirements for their welfare payment, what incentive did they have? What struck me, though, was how busy these people were. This was often their excuse for not attending appointments. They just had so much to do. Quite how they managed to be so busy, always with no paid work, usually with no educational commitments, and often with no family commitments either, well, that remained a mystery to me. There I was in my office, awaiting people who didn't show up, twiddling my thumbs, wishing desperately that I was as busy as my clients appeared to be. This appearance of busyness is one I've encountered in many places and circumstances over the years. There were my fellow workers in that establishment, for example. I know they had just as much difficulty encouraging their clients to attend appointments as I did, but talk to them and they were always quick to tell you how busy they were. When I was a clergyman, I often struggled to fill my time productively. I was, therefore, filled with guilt and a sense of inadequacy when confronted with the apparent busyness of all my colleagues. What was I not doing that they were? Was I simply more efficient than they were, completing all the necessary work in much less time? Was I overlooking some important duties, or were they really actually far less busy than they'd have me believe? The truth is probably a mixture of these things. Some things I probably didn't do as a curate or an assistant curate in a parish or as a chaplain that I was expected to do. I didn't, for instance, visit every day the same people that I visited the day before, who showed no interest in my visits anyway, or who tell me the same stories again. I didn't stand around for hours in the nurses' station at the hospital where I was working, networking with staff and building relationships with them. In fact, actually, gossiping and distracting them from their duties. I didn't always attend the seemingly endless sequence of vital committee meetings. I didn't always spend enough time writing reports that no one would read. Also, I have, actually, always been very efficient. I've always been able to spend half an hour on a task that might take someone else 2 hours. I was never inclined to extend this half hour by engaging in a very important hour-long conversation with a colleague, more networking than I failed to do. The problem with this efficiency is that it often left me bored, at a loose end. What do I do now? The secret, I've learned from others, is apparently to create work. I really must reorganise that filing cabinet that I reorganised last week. I really should visit Mrs. Smith again because she seemed a little down at the service last week, and she makes lovely pumpkin scones. I should form a committee to make sure that all the other committees are functioning efficiently. Busyness fills our empty spaces, warding off boredom and perhaps a nagging sense that what we're doing is really not achieving very much. Busyness, we hope, increases our worth and value in the eyes of others. Much more important than busyness, of course, though, is productivity. Now, I use this term with some reservations because it's used by government and business to constantly demand that more be done for less. But despite this abuse of the term, I know what gives me the greatest satisfaction. I can have a very busy morning but achieve nothing. On the other hand, I can have a quiet morning and achieve quite a lot. If I have a really productive morning, perhaps I write a very good chapter for my next book, or maybe I manage to get a huge chunk of copy editing out of the way, then I feel satisfied. I can have a very busy day and feel no satisfaction at all. If I have a productive morning, perhaps it's okay to spend the afternoon reading for pleasure or listening to music or walking on the beach or watching the birds chase each other among the trees. I don't need to fill the empty time with more busyness, and I don't have to feel guilty for not doing so.